Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dee McKenzie, and I'll be serving as your moderator for this session titled The Integration of Student Supports for Dual Enrollment as we glean from our panelists the lessons that they have learned from the early college high school model in North Carolina. And so it does give me great pleasure to welcome those of you that are here representing early colleges throughout the country, as well as community colleges and four-year institutes. And possibly we have individuals that are members of school districts or state agencies that are interested in establishing an early college program. So I do want to note that our purpose today is to share how over the past 20 years that how the early college program has been implemented in the state of North Carolina. And hopefully you'll be able to learn insights that you might consider in the expansion of a dual enrollment program. So this particular symposium is an opportunity for you to hear papers that are focused on the implementation and impact of the model, as well as reflections from our very own early college principal from Wake Early College School of Health Sciences. So at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our panelists. We have Elizabeth Glennie, Dr. Elizabeth Glennie, who's a senior research education analyst at RTI International. Welcome, Dr. Glennie. And then we have Dr. Frank McKay, who is a director of Peer Learning Networks, also at RTI International. Welcome, sir.
Hello, good to see you.
And we have Lisa Cummings, who is I'm sure she's the proud principal of Wake Early College of Health Sciences. Welcome, Lisa.
Absolutely proud and happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So at this time, I just want to give an overview of what will take place. So we'll provide an opportunity for the panelists to share with you presentations regarding papers that they have written as it relates to the early college experience. And then we will set aside time at the end to engage in a conversation about strategies for expanding the early college model. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Frank McKay.
Great. Thank you, Dee. It's great to be with everyone today. And I'm going to advance the slide here. And as Dee said, we're each going to highlight some different aspects of early college models and think a little bit more about what we've been learning from early college implementation, especially in North Carolina, although Beth can speak to what she's been learning more broadly nationally about the impact of early colleges, but what we can glean from the implementation of the model as we look to expand dual enrollment and access opportunities for students across the country. And so I'm going to speak a little bit about the early college model, especially within the context of North Carolina. And then Beth will talk a little bit about the research, and then Lisa will give what will probably be one of the favorite parts of the presentation, talking about what happens in her school to breathe life into the model and really make it work for student success. So as Dee mentioned, at RTI, one of my roles is program manager for the Early College Network, which is a network of currently 63 early colleges in North Carolina. That's about half of the early college high schools in the state. For North Carolina, some of you may know that North Carolina has a long record of implementation of early college high schools. The first legislation was introduced in 2003, and I have this slide up because the legislation in North Carolina is called the Cooperative Innovative High School legislation. And so in North Carolina, early colleges tend to be standalone high school models. The legislation caps enrollment at 100 students per grade level. So if schools are a 5-year early college high school, then they will have a cap of 500 students. And we realize that this is different than programs across the country. One of our principals here in North Carolina likes to say, if you've seen one early college, you've seen one early college, because they are they're such unique implementations, even in a state where there's pretty specific legislation. And so, as you'd expect, we've got CTE early colleges, we've got STEM early colleges, we have early colleges with global and international focus. We've got early colleges tied to four-year universities, five-year universities. Many are on community college campuses or four-year university campuses, while others are at remote satellite campuses for community colleges. And as you can see with this slide, in North Carolina, they span every region of the state. And for us, that's important in North Carolina because it provides that access that we are very invested in ensuring that the model is reaching as many students as possible. And we're also aware that while North Carolina has been doing this for 20 years, other states have as well. We know Texas, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, there's great programs happening across the country. We also know that California, Massachusetts, other states are making big investments in early college high schools. And so while we're talking a bit about North Carolina, again, Beth's going to talk more about lessons learned that apply to the early college model, knowing that probably many of you are from programs that are early college programs within traditional high schools, or that there's different models of early college programs, and Beth will speak to that a little bit more. A couple of other pieces of context for North Carolina. I've already mentioned that we have, they tend to be small standalone schools, and that they have can have different focus areas. The things that are common to the early college model that we're familiar with here in North Carolina are the fact that they all provide a rigorous college-going curriculum, and that the kind of sweet spot and secret of success is the combination of the rigorous program and curriculum tied with really strong student supports. And again, I won't steal Lisa's thunder. She'll talk more about what that looks like in her school specifically. But when we think about what can we learn from the early college high school model and 20 years of a track record in North Carolina, in my mind, it really boils down to what we know more broadly about research and education. And that tells us that there's really two things that are really powerful to increase student learning. Those are making sure students are connected and have a sense of belonging. And number two, that students see a sense of purpose in their learning. And that's research that's attached to Carol Dweck and growth mindset out of Stanford University. There's a lot of research about how those two things are really powerful. And so as we think about what can we learn from early college models, whether you're implementing a program within a larger high school or just starting up a program, thinking about with these schools in North Carolina, because they are capped, that means that they're able to create strong communities of learning with strong student supports. And so think about how can other programs model and tap into those things that really help students feel connected to the program, see the sense of purpose, and then build from there in terms of developing those academic mindsets and those other things that we know help students be successful in college classes in high school. One other thing for this slide that I wanted to mention is that for North Carolina, and I know this is true in different forms of policy across the country, but the policy in North Carolina specifies that there are three specific students populations that early college high schools are intended to serve. Very commonly, schools across the country focus on first-generation college students. And so in North Carolina, that looks like typically early colleges are targeting to have about 80% or more first-generation college students, and that's a statistic that most schools are tracking. Then also students who are traditionally underserved in higher education is part of the legislation. And then the third group is students who can benefit from an accelerated course of study. So just wanted to mention that as we get further into the presentation here. The last thing that I wanted to talk about before I hand it over to Beth to talk more about what the research on early college models tells us is just talking a little bit more about this idea of academic supports and non-academic supports. So when we think about a successful early college program, it's really that combination of the rigorous college-going curriculum combined with the supports that can help these different student groups get there and access that curriculum and be successful in that course of study. And so you all have probably been attending sessions throughout the day where you've heard different other presenters talk about these. So, and I'm sure many of you are implementing these in your own schools, but just to put a focus on it, what we see typically is that there's strong academic supports that include the curation of a college-going environment and developing those academic mindsets that get students thinking about their next steps in education and how their current work will help them get to the goals they set for themselves. Having small class sizes helps with the academic setting. Student advisory classes that help with skill development. I mean, again, Lisa will illustrate this, but there's many things those advisory classes can be used for. I know some other presenters today talked about AVID classes. Some early colleges build in AVID programming as part of those advisories, but that can be a strong piece of the academic support. Tutoring programs and things like that can really be helpful for students who are taking those college classes in 9th and 10th grade and not to get them ready for more college classes in 11th and 12th and 13th grade. The non-academic supports get towards the family engagement, summer bridge programs, the extracurricular community building activities that happen within the school. We like to talk about the summer bridge programs helping to build that strong sense of community and strong sense of belonging early on. And what we see is that the schools that have those really successful cultures are the ones that don't just treat that as 3 or 4 days or a week before school starts, but they continue to do that community building throughout the year, through the advisories, through peer mentoring, through different ways to engage students in that relationship building throughout the year. And that's really important. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Beth Glennie to share more about the extensive research that she's doing with some other colleagues on the impact of early college models.
Thank you.
Actually, sorry, I forgot I had one more slide. We'll come back to this at the end. If you have interest in the network that I mentioned, the Early College Network in North Carolina, again, we have 63 schools where we convene principals and teachers and college and liaisons and role alike convenings. I should say that at RTI, we have many hats that we wear with supporting early colleges. I sit in a center with Dee where we do technical assistance, professional development, academic and instructional coaching, and network management, where Beth sits in the research side of the house and focuses more on program evaluation and research. So just wanted to mention that if you have questions about that, we're happy to talk about it. And at the end of the session, we'll also talk about a early college summit that we host annually in June. But I don't want to take Beth's time, so I'll hand it over to her.
Thank you. In my studies of college access, my colleagues and I have identified 4 different barriers to post-secondary education. And studies of early college shows that the early college provides supports to address each one of these barriers. So we've talked about supports. I've been to other talks today about supports, but here I would like to talk about how they address these barriers. So financial barrier. College just costs too much. People can't afford it. But The early college provides courses free of charge, and that means you can finish college more quickly, which early collegers do. And it also provides the support of helping students get access to and negotiate the financial aid application. Students face academic barriers to college. There can be a real leap between high school and college, and so many students need remedial education when they get there because they don't pass the Accuplacer or some other exam like that. And that is not only discouraging, but it's expensive because those courses don't count toward your degree. And so that's a real setback here. But by insisting upon rigorous academic expectations for all students and providing supports for that rigorous work, the early college helps students meet these academic demands as they transition. We've also noticed cultural barriers. At high school, you've kind of got to be there. And, if you ditch, you'll get a call from your parents will get a call from the school if you're not there. And teachers will follow up on with you if you're not handing things in and whatnot. College assumes that you chose to be there and you should take responsibility for your own education. You ditch class, they don't call your parents. They don't follow up on you if you're not handing things in. You're expected to be able to do it. So students need skills and the ability to advocate for themselves and to pace things for themselves. And the early college helps them do it with, say, a freshman seminar where they go over these time management and organizational skills. If a student's having trouble, the early college teacher can show them how to write an email to a professor. What's the appropriate thing to say? What's the appropriate way to ask? And this kind of guidance really prepares them for the college work. And finally, there are logistical challenges. Applying to college is such a gauntlet, and really, you have to start in about ninth grade. And there's so many steps, and you have to do them in the right order. And if you're a child whose parents didn't go to college, and you're not networked with people who did, it's very hard to know. But the early, what to do and how to do it, and it's easy to mess it up. But at the early college, I mean, there's guidance on every step, and they tell students, seniors, now it is time for you to be doing this. Sophomores, now it is time for you to be doing this, and so that you get the support for the logistical challenges as well. Next slide. So there are some differences then between early college and dual credit. So a lot of dual credit nationally, the rates of dual credit have gone up a lot in the past 15 years or so. So more and more students are taking college classes while they're in high school. But most often, students within a school choose to participate, as opposed to our North Carolina early college, which is a standalone school where everybody participates. But here in dual credit, they choose, and maybe that's good because they want to do it. But that means that students who are already on the college track and who have advantaged parents, educated parents, have higher rates of participating both in dual credit and in AP exams. And Frank mentioned we have some targeted populations, first generation college goers, economically disadvantaged students, and the early college is targeting those by design here. Frequently, in kind of traditional public schools, dual credit courses are what I call random acts of college credit. You just take something because it's interesting to you, whereas at the early college, it's really part of a college or career pathway. You need to take these high school classes before you take that one. And if this is what your goal, they make sure you're taking college classes that are transferable to the 4-year system. My son is a freshman at J.D. Clement Early College here in Durham, and he's going into his sophomore year being told what classes to take, because they want him to finish his required high school classes as fast as he can so that then he will have the freedom. But he's got the foundation in mathematics and English and history, to do that. And so they really are linking it that way. But the dual credit, like the early college, still, if you get those college credits, that helps with reducing the financial barriers of college. And it also prepares for students for what the expectations of college work will be. Next slide, please. Do these supports have an impact? Does it matter? I aim to find out. And I've been part of a study examining the impact of North Carolina's early colleges for 17 years. Yeah. And this is a study in which we compared students who applied and were randomly selected to be accepted or not. And over these years, we had 6 cohorts of students, like first-time freshmen, and their applicant data, and then across 19 early colleges here, which yields about 4,000 students. Next slide. So for people who are a little more picture oriented, this is how it worked. So any student could apply to the early college. The early colleges have the right to screen the applications. And maybe they have policies that if the teacher recommendations are really, really bad, or the students has been out of school suspended or something, they can do that. That's up to them and nothing to do with me. Also, a school might say, well, I want my teacher's kid to be able to come. Or I want to have a sibling preference. So, that's fine. If they wanted to do that, they could. But those people are not in the study. Only random assignment. So once we had that, we had eligible students, and then it was a lottery. So basically, that yielded our treatment and control groups. And this is apples to apples comparison. These students are as close to each other, the treatment and control are as close to each other as they possibly could be, except one's a little luckier than the other. It's not that we're comparing students who chose it to students who didn't know about it. I mean, you would think those would be different people in terms of their motivation and well-being. So this is what we did. It's kind of the gold standard in this kind of research. Next slide. So what do we find? Well, to get into the University of North Carolina system, you've got to have taken 4 mathematics classes. And so what we looked at was the percentage who completed all of the required mathematics courses for the system admission. And my slides present overall and then by 3 target groups. So URM is underrepresented minority. These are students in racial ethnic groups that are underrepresented in college. And so we have underrepresented URM, underrepresented, and not URM. Then we have the next set of bars is first generation college goers and students who are not, whose parents have had some college. And then FRPL is free and reduced price lunch. In 8th grade, were students eligible for free and reduced price lunch. So we wanted to see what's the impact overall, but is it having an impact on the targeted groups that it's designed to serve? And here with mathematics, you see that it is. The little star by the header means that the difference between treatment and control is statistically significant or too big to reasonably attribute to chance factors. So overall, early college students are more likely to complete all the required mathematics courses. Students who are not in an underrepresented minority group are getting a bump here in terms of their mathematics. Regardless of your parents' educational attainment, you're more likely to have taken all the necessary mathematics classes. And finally, we see the greatest benefit really for economically disadvantaged kids. Those who are eligible for free or reduced price lunch, 86% of them had taken all of the required courses in mathematics, compared with only 78 in the comparison group. Next slide, please. So then we look at college credits earned in high school, and this is where we see the most stark difference, right? Every difference is statistically significant. Every difference is big. And this is because of the design of the model and the emphasis on trying to have students attain an associate degree or 2 years of transferable credit um, by the time they get their diploma. And so this, it just shows that, again, especially if you look at those less likely to go to college, when these students have the opportunity, they do it. You know, and as I said above, I mean, straight up dual credit, sometimes it's the less advantaged students are less likely to do it. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here. But when it's expected of all students, they do it. And they get loads of credits for college. Next slide, please. So finally, we wanted to know if they had gotten a college degree by 6 years after their 12th grade year. And so, yes, they have across the board, really, students who went to the early college, regardless of what group they're in, are more likely to have attained an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree within 6 years of 12th grade. And I'm not showing it here today, but the real leap, the real biggest difference is actually in the associate's degree. But there is, especially for economically disadvantaged and first generation in the bachelor's degree, there's a big difference. And I think with the associate degree, some of them, maybe they hadn't been thinking about getting an associate degree, but yeah, I can pick it up while I go. So I'm going to just do it. And so they do. But again, you see this for every single group that's 6 years after 12th grade that they have attained some form of degree. And I think that's all I've got. So I will pass to Lisa.
But there's one quick clarifying question in the chat.
Yeah.
Who was in the control group again?
People who applied to the early college and couldn't get in.
So based on the lottery. Yeah.
It was a lottery. So it was basically a coin toss. Heads, you didn't get in. I mean, it was basically that. And so but they all applied. They were all interested enough or had parents who were enough or whatever to apply.
And actually, I have one other clarifying question, because we know there's been a big expansion, or part of this conference is the expansion of dual enrollment efforts. The results of the especially this last slide around college credits earned, this comparison, what years were these data from? Is this 5 years ago, 3 years ago, or?
Yeah, I mean,
I know it's a
more
number
than
of
5 years
You've been
ago,
looking at it
I
over
would
time.
say. I would
Yeah.
say my youngest cohort is yeah, it's more than 5 years ago because I needed enough time for 6 years after 12th grade.
Absolutely.
So if you subtract that, you see.
And I just wanted to ask that question, knowing that we probably have folks in the audience who might be wondering that.
And as I said, it's expanded. Dual credit here in North Carolina has expanded a lot in the past 5 years. So this might look a little bit different, but you can see that our control group did take it. Even, the first generation college students in the control group still did it. They were motivated to do it, and they did. So, and this includes AP or dual credit, any college credit that they could have had.
Yeah, it's helpful too to know that
in high school.
Yeah.
But they did do it. And so they took advantages of, I think, the opportunities that they had. And so as North Carolina has been expanding this, and more schools are seeing how to do it or how to expand the number of courses that they offer. Well, more, and again, they can do it if they have the chance to do it.
Great, thank you.
All right, Beth.
Please.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
So hello, thank you for sharing your afternoon with us today. I'm Lisa Cummings, principal at Wake Early College of Health and Science in Raleigh, North Carolina. And for my presentation segment, I'll provide an overview of our school, a snapshot of a typical graduating class, our successful partnerships, and information about how we support early college students. So Wake Early College of Health and Science, which we'll call WEX, it's the acronym, opened in 2006 as the first early college in Wake County, and it was a partnership between Wake County Schools, Wake Technical Community College, and Wake Med Health and Hospitals. And the goal at that time was to provide a future workforce in health sciences, much as you heard about the keynote Dr. Stout talk about with what's happening in Durham public schools as well. So WEX is a public magnet high school that is a whole school early college. We admit 75 students in 9th grade, and they stay until the 12th or 13th year or 12 and a half year or some combination thereof. Students graduate with a high school diploma and can also graduate with an Associate of Art or Science, and then health science degrees and certificates from Wake Tech. 70% of our students are first generation or underrepresented in post-secondary, and our students are selected by a lottery that is run by our district. We focus on preparing future health science students for health science careers, and our school is located on one of 2 Wake Tech campuses that are about 20 minutes apart. Half our students are on one campus and the other half are on the other campus. And so for context, Wake County Public School System serves 160,000 students in 200 schools with a $2 billion budget. And then Wake County, where we live, has a population of 1 million, and we pull from that entire district. And now Wake County, well, we were the first in 2006, Wake County Public Schools now has 7 early colleges, 4 of whom partner with Wake Tech. If you can go to the next slide. This slide contains a snapshot of the graduating class of 2023, and this is fairly typical of what we see from our graduates. So 80 graduates is our typical class, and 55 of them are 12th grade and 25 were 13th. And the 13th grade are those who chose not to graduate in their 4th year of high school, but wanted to stay for that 5th year and take advantage of the additional opportunities that we could provide for them. 27 of the graduates had Associate of Arts degrees and 43 had Associate of Science. Again, most of our students are going into the healthcare field, and so that Associate of Science that's a little heavier in math is the path that they typically choose. In addition to their associate's degree, 10 students also had this earned certified nurse aide, 3 students earned phlebotomy, 6 earned emergency medical technician, and 3 students earned medical assisting. 80% of that graduating class were planning to attend a 4-year university, with the most popular universities from that graduating class being North Carolina State, UNC Chapel Hill, and UNC Charlotte. And I don't know that I'm sure it was mentioned or may or may not have been mentioned today, but there's an articulation agreement between the UNC system and the community college system that allows these credits for this associate's degree to transfer to the university. And so most of our students do take advantage of that, and they stay local for their immediate to finish their bachelor's degree. And then if they decide to transfer somewhere else after that, then they do so then. And because of that articulation agreement, we work very strategically to make sure that students know what they want to do before they leave, or have a better idea of what they want to do before they leave us. Because when they do leave, and if their goal is to go on to the university, they're in their junior level coursework at university, and I don't want them to waste their money. We don't want them to waste their money at that point, because thus far it's been the state's money. And if you can go to the next slide. So WEX is a partner with both Wake Technical Community College and Wake Med Health and Hospitals. And as I said before, this was also mentioned as a partnership in Durham, but it is a unique partnership to have 2 other partners, but one that is very beneficial for us. And we are very proud of our partnership and happy to have them both on board. From our Institute of Higher Ed, our IHE partner, Wake Tech, we benefit from so many different things, including career exploration, lab and clinical tours, college advising, departmental sharing sessions where the English department for the college will meet and with the department from the high school and share some feedback and best practices. And one of my favorite examples that I give is, it's been a couple years ago, but we had one of those departmental meetings between the math department at the college and the math department at the high school. And what the advice that we got from the college was, please tell your students that when we are going over their homework with them or their test with them, not to erase their wrong answers, but instead to make note of where their errors were and correct them. But our students were going through in their perfectionist mannerisms and erasing everything that was wrong and writing it out as correct. And that was a great piece of advice that we wouldn't have known to tell them. So those kinds of things come out of these sharing sessions. We also have a college liaison, and then the college participates in our business alliance. The memorandum of understanding, it has different names depending upon where you are, but that having a strong MOU is very important. And then communication and scheduled partnership sharing sessions is a big key to our success. For our 10th grade students, for 10th graders, that's when they begin taking their college classes. And we scaffold them into college classes through, in the 10th grade, they take ACA, HEA 110, and some of them take Math 171, but they're in a college class where they are primarily just with their peers. They are not, it's a very sheltered class in the sense that they're with other 10th graders from their school and not necessarily what it is when they're in 11th grade. Now, in 11th, 12th, and 13th grade on the other campus, the students are earning dual credit for the remainder of their high school graduation requirements while also checking off the requirements for their associate's degree. And they're doing this on a college campus with an enrollment of 11,000 students. Well, it's 11,000 students, but only 5,321 actually report to campus. So I always say 11,000 for the shock value, but technically a little over 5,000 are actually seated. But still, 180 early college students in 11th, 12th, and 13th grade on a campus which is serving 5,000 students in person can be daunting. So for our WakeMed partner, they supplement us in many ways as well, and also very grateful for that. So our high school career development coordinator facilitates most of the work-based learning opportunities provided by our hospital partner, including but not limited to volunteering, job shadowing, internships, networking, mentoring. And WakeMed also serves on our business alliance, and they participate in the scheduled partner sharing sessions, and they also provide for financial support. If you can go to the next slide, please. So supporting students in college classes looks very different depending upon the student's needs, but over time, some practices have proven effective. And I've heard this mentioned in many different sessions today. And again, if you've seen One Early College, you've seen One Early College, but there are so many things that we do that are so very similar. We spend a lot of time front-loading the students on learning about themselves as learners and metacognition. And within that, who are you as a learner and how are you going to learn best, knowing who you are, but then also really working with time management, because they go from a setting where in 9th and 10th grade, every single day, someone's asking to see their work. Let me help you check your agenda. Let me do this. Let me do that. Let me do the other. To, as Beth said, an environment where they might have 4 assignments. Nobody's asking to see your homework. Nobody's asking to check your agenda. It's like, here it is. Let's do this. So helping them really plan for their time management. We also realized that they needed to have 4 strong maths before they got to 11th grade in the college math. So that is something that we built in. But we also have, once they get to the upper campus, 11th, 12th, and 13th grade campus, strategic advising. And so not only from the high school staff, but also from the college liaison, we're looking at what is it that you want to do? What's the time frame you want to do it in? and how are we going to help you get there? And our course selection is very scripted because we're getting them through the high school classes so they can get off that campus on time with cohort to then getting through that associate's degree. And so it is, and they have to do it within the time frame to fit when the bus runs, because we don't have them on campus after the high school buses will run. So that is a lot of work for our liaison, and she does it beautifully. So the strategic advising, not one size fits all. We have to make sure that we're meeting the individual's needs within the context of what we do offer and where we're going with that. And then purposeful scheduling. We've learned over time specific courses that do and don't work with others. And then some students might not be ready for a full 4 college courses in that fall of their junior year when they go to North, with also the labs that go with them. Some might need maybe a reduced load. And so we work with students on an individual basis to make sure that we're helping them get to their goal in a time frame that works for everybody. Targeted courses, we offer academic assistance taught by a high school teacher once a week on the Northern campus paired with English, math, and science. And they do some pre-teaching, reteaching. They do grade checks where the students have to log into their college account and take a screenshot of their grades and share it with us, since we don't know what the grades are and only they can access them. So it's a way for us to then talk about, okay, so I see that this happened with this particular course. Let's talk about your options. What do you need to do next? Do you need to schedule a meeting with your instructor? Do you need to send your instructor an email? Do you need to go to one of these academic assistance offerings that the college has available to you so that you can then learn how to do fill in the blank better? And so helping them then decide what's next, not just saying, oh, I bombed this, oh, well, right, okay, what are we going to do next? Yeah, so it's the professor office hours, professor emails. That's my next thing. So targeted courses, purposeful scheduling, and then interventions in and out of classroom. And that's, again, not only working with students on the concepts that they might have gaps in or they might need reminding, because if they haven't had math in a semester or so, it's like, yeah, you remember how to do this, and the teachers will go through and show them. Or pointing them to the right resources that they need to use, or answering questions like, hey, can ChatGPT write my essay for me? No, it cannot, and here's why. But let's talk about some other resources. But then also, professor office hours, professor emails, using campus resources, because that's really scary. And some of our kids come to us as 12 and 13-year-olds in 9th grade. So as a junior, they're still really young, and some of them are still very timid when it comes to doing something like this, and it can be pretty scary. So we walk them through that, and hand holding along the way to really get them comfortable, because then when they leave us and they go on to whatever's next, we want them to be confident. So those are the highlights of the PHS and the North Campus in a real quick overview. Our graduates do report that being seated in classes with the general population on the Northern campus, the 5,000 other or 11,000 students that are on that campus, that exposure to what they call real college, to real college experience, combined with how to talk to your professors, how to go and use the campus resources, were the 2 things that they tell us were so beneficial. And year after year, they come back and just give us more and more feedback on this is what you could do better. This is what we need more of. This is what you do that's rock solid, and we appreciate it. So that's
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And thank you to our panelists for taking the time to share their experience as it relates to the integration of college supports and structures for a college-going culture. Thank you for sharing the impact of early college for students. And then lastly, just to Lisa for her perspectives within the walls of an early college high school. So at this time, we have approximately 5 minutes remaining for questions that individuals in the session may have. So I will open it up now for questions. Please feel free to either type your questions in the chat, or if you would like to pose your question, just raise your hand virtually and we will acknowledge you. Any questions?
Dee, I'll just
All
make I was going to make a comment while we're waiting on questions to come in, just about, again, with the focus on looking back in, what we've learned from early colleges as we've been hearing in this conference and see across the country, this interest in expanding dual enrollment so that the students who need to benefit and can benefit the most can do that. Hopefully some of these highlights, while a standalone school is a great way to be able to provide these supports, I think just thinking about how can similar supports help expand that access, because as Beth mentioned, we know from data that traditionally dual enrollment has served students who are academically ready in some aspects, and so the question of what can we draw from this model to help more students be successful in whatever form of dual enrollment, I think is a really important question.
Well, I actually have a question as it relates to Frank. You noted the legislation mentioned that the schools were designed with the purpose of attracting or providing access for students that come from low socioeconomic backgrounds, students that are first-year generational college. I am curious to know about what have schools done intentionally to preserve that intent for which these schools first started. So I'd love to hear anyone's response to that particular question.
I wonder if we can pitch that to Lisa to hear, in terms of, you said 70% of your students are first generation or fit those groups.
Apologize, Dee, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question is,
entertaining my father, who in his dementia, he has called me about 5 times in the last couple minutes.
Gosh.
Not a
So if you can repeat the question.
So the question was in regards to what are some things that you've intentionally done to kind of preserve the integrity of the original intent of schools being open to provide access for first generation college students, as well as students that come from those socioeconomic backgrounds. So I'm just curious, those students that are underrepresented in post-secondary education. So.
Right, so specific to strategic recruiting, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yeah, so that is interesting, because we do have some barriers that exist, especially in a district that's so large. And I know everyone has barriers, but transportation being a real specific one of them. If you're familiar with our area, our public transportation has lots of room for improvement. And so what we try to do, sorry, is that nicely stated? If you'll look at the data about where our kids actually live, there's a seam of little dots between our 2 campuses. And so our students have learned, that it's most beneficial to be close to the school, right? And so we've done that. You could throw a net around either campus and bring in all the students that I need that fit our profile, right? And we'd fill our school with the students that we need. But students are afraid. Families are afraid because they don't know. They don't understand necessarily what early college is. What does that mean? I want the big Friday night football game. I want this. I want that, right? But what they don't see is what can this launch your student into? And for some families, that's ending generational cycles of poverty that are within that family, that have been. And so we use the best voice that I've heard mentioned earlier tonight, which is the word of mouth. And we use our students, and not necessarily pulling them out of class and taking them on recruiting visits, but we have them out in their communities talking to, whether it's their faith-based organization, their scout troop, whomever it is that their impact, their community. they're talking to those groups about their specific experiences and what it's done for them. And we're highlighting those on our social channels and really trying to put that information out there as this is something that yes, you can see yourself in this, right? I mean, you also have to be strategic about your promotional materials. If we realized 10 years ago that we couldn't have more, why don't we have more males signing up? Well, look at your promotional materials. All your pictures are girls. Oh, let's work on that. But working with the communities and doing outreach events, inviting people to be there who speak languages other than English, and who can relate to families is what we have found to be most impactful.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Lisa. And so with that said, we want to again thank our panelists for sharing their knowledge, as well as to our attendees for coming. We do want to quickly highlight Beth's book, Early Colleges as a Model for Schooling. So if you get an opportunity, it's a great read. And then lastly, as Frank alluded to earlier at the start of our session, please consider attending our 2024 Early College Summit that will be held in Durham, North Carolina, starting June 4th and concluding June 5th. So we'd love to see you there. And with that said, thank you very much, and everyone have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.